Under the wash of an indifferent moon, the research vessel Odysseus drifted above a coral plateau in the mid-Atlantic ridge. Its underwater lights, pale beams of blue and white, pierced the darkness, illuminating towering sea fans, sponges shaped like chandeliers, and the drifting dust of plankton. Marine biologist, Dr. Elena Marquez hovered above the console, eyes locked on the submersible's downward camera feed. At 02:17 a.m., the spotlight revealed an unexpected sight. Nestled in a crevice between two basalt columns was an enormous common octopus, its mottled skin shifting from cinnamon brown to stormy charcoal as it surveyed the intruding machine. Elena's heart thudded. To find a fully grown Octopus vulgaris in this remote reef, far from its usual coastal haunts, was beyond any of their predictions. Moments later, pilot Marco Chen guided the robotic arm forward, its gleaming pincer swiveling open like a mechanical claw. Elena issued the command. "Gently now. We want to observe, not injure." The arm extended, and in one fluid motion it scooped the octopus into a transparent polycarbonate cylinder attached to the sub's side. Water rushed around the animal, but inside, it found itself in an impossibly clear enclosed cylinder, tube lights reflecting off its skin like a city of stars. Once secured, the sub ascended to the sea's mid-twilight zone at 200 meters. Elena and Marco peered through the viewport as the octopus pressed its suckers against the glass, eyeing them with solemn intelligence. Its 8 arms curled around the cylinder's interior, each suction cup like a pale button studding the velvet of evening. "Elena," whispered Dr. Priya Natarajan from the rear station, "it's unlike any octopus we've ever seen. Look at that pattern, those spiraled rings around the mantle, and the way its pupils narrow. This specimen has seen far more than a coastal octopus." Elena nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. How had it come to this lonely reef? What strange currents or hidden canyons had carried it here? As they logged position, 34°12.8 N, 45°23.4 W, and prepared to return to the surface laboratory, the octopus cupped its head, ink sac distended. The sub's lights glowed too brightly. They needed to adjust. But before they could, a faint tremor shook the hull, an undersea quake rolling through the ridge. Inside the cylinder, the octopus recoiled, then released a dark plume of ink that swirled thickly, creating a smoky veil between it and the glass. Alarm flared in Elena's chest. "Shut down the cylinder lights," she commanded. The flood of ink ebbed into a murk that blanketed one half of the cylinder. Slowly, the octopus edged backward, its powerful arms flexing as if testing the barrier. It was clear. This was no passive specimen. They had captured a creature capable of ingenuity and defiance. As the quake subsided and the water cleared, the octopus stared out, one arm ghosting along the cylinder's seam. In that moment, Elena sensed the beginning of a true partnership between human and cephalopod, one that would challenge every assumption they held about intelligence below the waves, and soon force the octopus to mount a daring escape through the vessel's underbelly, revealing hidden corridors of the reef they could never have mapped on their own. Beneath the fluorescing walls of its polycarbonate prison, the octopus hovered in near darkness as Elena Marquez and her team dialed down the sub's lights. The cylinder's interior was stained a ghostly gray from the quake-triggered ink, and condensation trickled down the walls. As the vessel stabilized at 200 meters, the researchers prepared to transport their extraordinary captive back to the surface lab, but the octopus had other plans. Assessing the prison. Through the viewport, the scientists watched the creature methodically explore every inch of its enclosure. Its 8 arms, each tipped with tiny suction cups capable of incredible dexterity, glided along the seams where cylinder segments joined. Priya noted, "It's testing for gaps. Look at how it probes the circular hatch lock." Indeed, the locking mechanism, a simple twist clamp, had been designed for human hands, not octopus suckers. But the animal's intelligent persistence soon revealed a weakness. The edges of each clamp had small indents to aid gripping. The octopus aligned a pair of suckers in one such notch, peeled away the seal, and pried gently. Harnessing cephalopod ingenuity. As the clamp clicked loosened, the team gasped. "Shut it down!" Elena ordered, but the sub's hydraulics whined in protest. It was too late. The octopus twisted its mantle in triumph and used two arms to grip the hatch lip. With a swift pull, it unlatched the seal. Salt water rushed in as the cylinder equalized with the surrounding ocean pressure. Inside the main cabin, alarms blared. Marco Chen wrestled the controls, but the sub's external seals were weakening. "We're compromised," he radioed. Priya grabbed a spare glove, preparing to reseal the hatch manually, but the octopus was already one step ahead. Rejecting the idea of confinement, it flung a cloud of dark ink into the cabin's water intake, shorting the pump controls. Lights flickered, and the sub lurched on its tethers. The ingenious escape. In the half-light, the octopus executed the plan it had devised. It extended 3 arms through the now-open hatch into the sub's intake chamber. There, it manipulated the emergency manual close wheel, designed only for human reach, with astonishing precision. Its suckers latched the spokes and cranked the wheel in a series of practiced turns. Water flow slowed, then stopped with a hiss. The sub's hydraulics returned to neutral as the cylinder hatch slammed shut behind it. Freed from the cylinder, but still trapped within the sub, the octopus wasted no time. It slithered across the slick metal floor toward an access panel near the pilot's seat. Under the fluorescent glare, it used its beak, exposed when 2 arms parted, to chip away at the silicone seal of the panel's gasket. Seconds later, it peeled the panel loose, revealing a narrow crawl space into the sub's underbelly. Chaos in the cabin. Alarmed shouts filled the cabin as Elena and Marco realized what was happening. "Stop it!" Elena shouted as the octopus vanished into the dark maw of the hull. Priya lunged with a stun gun designed for marine mammals, but the device failed in the ink-clogged atmosphere. Oxygen levels dipped as the sub's life support scrubbers struggled with the contaminated air. A new partnership emerges. Moments later, in the overhead camera feed, the researchers saw the creature's silhouette moving confidently through maze-like pipes and access tunnels. It paused at a confluence of cables, then traced a path toward the main seawater outflow, an opening ordinarily used for ballast control. In a final deft motion, it pushed aside a valve catch with an arm and slipped free into the open ocean beyond. In stunned silence, the cabin crew watched the outflow nozzle glow as seawater surged in, carrying their remarkable passenger away into the reef's hidden corridors. Elena exhaled, voice trembling. "It didn't just escape. It led us straight into the reef's veins." Imagine what it'll show us next. As the sub's systems rebooted and water cleared, the team realized their captive had become their guide. Its daring escape opening a gateway into the labyrinthine depths they had only just begun to chart. Once the hull hatch sealed and the sub's filters cleared the lingering ink, Dr. Elena Marquez steadied the vessel on a steady 150-meter depth contour above the reef slope. Through the main viewport, the reef's facade lay revealed, undulating walls of brain coral, thickets of finger sponges, and twisting fans of gorgonians that created a veritable maze of living corridors. With their octopus guide vanished into the labyrinth, the researchers exchanged nervous glances, aware they now followed an intelligence bred for these passages. Mapping the maze. Using side-scan sonar and 3D imaging, Marco Chen overlaid a digital grid onto the viewport feed. "We're entering Sector C7, he announced, highlighting a network of narrow gullies choked with coral arches. "Depth drops here to 180, then back up to 140 near the mid-reef plateau." Elena keyed their course. "Steady 2-knot forward. Watch for overhangs." The first passageway. At 04:12 a.m., the sub crept into the first corridor, a tunnel carved by centuries of currents. Overhead, stalactite-like sponges dripped golden polyps. Beneath, soft sediment muffled the sub's thrusters. A shaft of bioluminescent plankton drifted past, briefly igniting the walls in ghostly blue. Priya Natarajan leaned forward. Look at those nooks, tenebrous pockets the octopus could hide in. Sure enough, a pair of iridescent eyes blinked from a crevice, a moray eel disturbed by their lights, then vanished as quickly as it appeared. Charting unexpected caverns. Deeper in, Marco's sonar tone flattened. Open chamber ahead. He guided the sub into a cathedral-like cavern at 04:25 a.m., its ceiling arched high above, encrusted with bright red anemones and lavender-soft corals. Cold upwellings drifted down like invisible curtains. As the sub settled, Zoe Chen activated the external manipulators and collected water samples, testing temperature, salinity, and trace nutrients. Lin Tran's sensors beamed data. High methane readings. This area may be influenced by deep vents. Suddenly, the sub rocked as a school of armored shrimp darted across the floodlights. Their carapaces glinted like metal shards. Predator alert? Elena muttered as nearby shadows coalesced into a pantheon of fish. Triggerfish, groupers, and a wary octopus silhouette lurking beneath a coral ledge. The researchers realized the labyrinth teemed with hidden ecosystems, each corridor a separate biome. Following the invisible path. Consulting their 3D map, Elena spotted a faint current vector, likely the same water flow guiding their cephalopod ally. Follow the flow, she directed. The sub angled slightly downward, drifting into a narrower trough where the current whispered past the hull. The walls closed in until their retro-reflective tape markers guided the way, a human attempt to replicate the octopus's intuitive sense of direction. Through the viewport, the corridor twisted, a sharp right under an overhang, a short swim through a sandy narrows, then a sudden collapse of branching tunnels. Here the current split. One path led toward shallower reef flats, the other plunged into darker depths. A flash of golden flicker revealed the octopus's distinctive spiral pattern on a distant rock. There! Priya exclaimed as the creature reappeared, beckoning with a swift wave of its arm. Trusting the guide without hesitation, Elena keyed the sub's thrusters and followed the octopus into the descending branch. The walls closed in further, forcing them to invert the hull's angle and proceed tail first. Coral columns brushed the sub's sides, imperceptibly chipping sensors but leaving the craft intact. In the distance, the creature halted beneath a narrow overhang, its primary squeeze point. It wedged itself through, then paused, its mantle flickering with chromatophore warning patterns. The sub's front cameras relayed a tight gap, too small for human divers, but just ample for the weighted camera sled. Deploy the micro-rover, Elena ordered. A compact crawler slipped into the gap on a fiber-optic tether, its micro-thrusters humming. Under the octopus's watchful eye, the rover scuttled forward, mapping the next stretch where the reef's hidden chasm led to an unexplored lagoon. Revelation of the reef's heart moments. Later, the octopus guided the rover back, trailing luminously lit cables like a lifeline. Its path had revealed the reef's hidden heart, a sunken caldera of collapsed coral towers forming a sheltered basin where rare deep-sea species gathered. Glass shrimps, blind brittle stars, and a carpet of bioluminescent polychaete worms. The data display pulsed with excitement, temperature anomalies, chemical signatures, and biological diversity peaks. Elena exhaled, voice thick with wonder. We found it, the reef's secret sanctuary. As the sub backed cautiously from the squeeze point, the octopus slipped through beside the rover, vanishing into the darkness beyond. The scientists realized they were not merely observers. They had become guests in a realm where intelligence and ingenuity guided every turn. With the corridors of coral now charted and the hidden lagoon documented, the team prepared for the deeper chapters ahead, where sunken ruins and predatory gauntlets awaited, all revealed by the daring escape of their octopus guide. Vizcazale, as the submersible glided away from the hidden lagoon's cradle, its external lights dimmed to avoid startling whatever lay within the darkened halls of the sunken ruins ahead. Doctor. Elena Marquez keyed the console. Advance to ruined Sector B4, depth 2 at 20 meters. On the viewport, a tapestry of carved stone columns and collapsed archways emerged from the gloom, encrusted with barnacles and draped in kelp, a remnant of a centuries-old shipwreck or perhaps the foundations of an ancient port now claimed by the sea. Entering the ruined gateway, at 05:42 a.m., the sub's hull brushed against the face of a monumental keystone, its weathered relief depicting leaping dolphins and swirling waves. Priya Natarajan maneuvered the floodlights to reveal a yawning entrance, a vaulted corridor of stone blocks tilted by shifting currents. The Octopus, Tortellini, their invisible guide, slid ahead, turning to beckon the sub through the carved portal. Inside, the water was eerily still, disturbed only by faint motes of sediment drifting like spectral snow. Zoe Chen adjusted the cameras to infrared mode, capturing the first flickers of life. Small, brittle stars scuttling across carved steps and a curled sea cucumber sheltering in a broken capital. Elena's breath caught as she realized this was more than a shipwreck. This was art, sculpted friezes of merfolk, bas-relief panels of silent prayer, each detail preserved beneath layers of silt. Sparks in the darkness. As the sub entered the central chamber, a sudden flash of light and crackle of electricity startled the crew. "What?" Marco exclaimed, as arcs of bioluminescent bacteria, disturbed by their passage, ignited like living sparks across the floor. But the true source of the phenomenon was deeper. Two massive, kelp-draped pylons bristled with encrusted metal rods, ancient power conduits, still charged by residual currents coursing through old copper wiring. Elena peered closer. "This structure once channeled thermal vent energy," she whispered. Lin Tran tapped her analyzer. Trace metals, copper, iron, even gold alloys, likely wiring from a bygone era. As the sub's magnetometer chimed, the walls hummed with latent energy, and every touch of the floodlight brought a brief, electric shimmer of orange-blue, sparks dancing in the dark like fireflies. Creatures of the ruins. Within the chamber's heart lay a collapsed dais, upon which the octopus now perched, arms draped regally over carved stone. Surrounding it, a gathering of reef inhabitants, eels, juvenile groupers, and a lone spotted ratfish, watched the scene in silent awe. When the sub's cameras focused, Elena saw the ratfish's bioluminescent organ glow in response to the pylon's sparks, creating a living constellation at the chamber's center. Priya whispered, "It's a sanctuary. These ruins transformed into an ecosystem powered by the spring of the vents." The octopus, sensing their wonder, released a jet of ink that coaxed small glass shrimp from hidden crevices. The shrimp's transparent bodies scattered, refracting the sparking light in kaleidoscopic flashes. A test of nerve. The sub's stabilizers nudged a collapsed lintel, and a cloud of silt threatened to obscure lights and clog sensors. Marco guided them back, but the tight space meant one wrong move could trap them. Tortellini sketched a path around a fallen block, curling an arm to indicate a narrow gap. Trusting its lead, Marco angled the sub and slipped through with only millimeters to spare. As they emerged into an adjoining hall, the sparks dimmed, and the bioluminescent glow receded. Only shadows remained of the chamber's living tapestry. A moment of reverence. In the hushed corridor, Zoe captured the final image. The octopus alone on an altar of stone, lit by a single flicker of bacterial spark, framed by coral-draped pylons. Elena pressed a soft "thank you" through the comms. The sub floated in respectful silence, recording the ruins' electric breath and the creatures that had made this place home. Charting the next passage. With their data logged and hearts alight, the researchers plotted the next leg, the Predator's Gauntlet, Sector D3, where the reef narrowed into hunting grounds of deep-water predators. As they set course, Tortellini led the way once more, its silhouette slipping ahead into the corridor's gathering shadows, guiding them toward revelations yet unseen beneath the labyrinthine sea. With the submersible threaded safely past the wrecked pylons and echoing ruins, the water around Odysseus seemed to fall silent, an almost reverent hush. Doctor. Elena Marquez signaled to reduce thruster noise, and through the viewport, the researchers witnessed the reef transform. From carved stone to living tapestry, each organism performing its role in an unseen orchestra. A chorus of camouflage. At 06:18 a.m., Zoe Chen pointed her camera at a broad swath of coral carpet crossed by intricate, lace-like patterns of moving polychaete worms. "Look at that coordinated wave," she whispered. Beneath the floodlight, hundreds of tube worms, each no more than a centimeter long, pulsed in unison, their feathery plumes filtering microscopic plankton. As the current shifted, the worms bent and straightened in a ripple that traveled across the reef like musical notation. Nearby, a camouflaged flounder lay motionless on the sand. When a shoal of darting sand eels passed overhead, the flounder's skin shimmered, shifting from mottled browns to silvery streaks. The effect was so seamless that the passing fish seemed to vanish into thin water. Priya recorded excitedly, "Adaptive camouflage tuned to prey movements, a true symphony of survival." Bioluminescent harmonies. Deeper still, at 06:27 a.m., the sub's lights illuminated a grove of coral outcroppings, pulsing with soft blue and green glows. Tiny comb jellies drifted between branches, their ciliary rows refracting light in prismatic flashes. The team adjusted the sub's cameras to ultra-slow shimmer mode, revealing a dance of luminescence. Each jellyfish pulsed in time with the distant rumble of valves and vents, a bioluminescent metronome that set the pace for the reef's nocturnal hunters. Elena murmured, "It's like a concert, each species playing its own part." In the gaps between jellies, brittle stars reached out, their arms lined with photoreceptors that triggered brief flashes of white light at each joint, creating a staccato echo of the jelly's legatos, the cephalopod's solo. Then, as if acknowledging her role in this deep-sea opus, Tortellini emerged onto a ledge just outside the viewport. She extended two arms in a slow, sweeping gesture, then curled them to produce a rhythmic pattern of chromatophore displays, deep reds and dark purples morphing into electric blues and pale ivory. The effect was hypnotic, an octopus's aria visible for the first time on film. Lynn Tran, wide-eyed, whispered through her mask, "She's improvising. No known pattern like this." The sub's spectrometer recorded the light wavelengths as Tortellini's body glowed in time with the reef's broader bioluminescent chorus. A cephalopod, solo woven into the ecology's grand fugue, recording the reef's score. As the sub drifted through the silent reef cathedral, Marco collected audio samples on hydrophones. When played back at low volume, the recordings revealed a tapestry of subtle sounds, the scrape of urchin spines on rock, the faint crackle of coral growth, and the flutter of tiny crustaceans among seaweed fronds. Overlaid with the visual bioluminescence, the researchers realized they had stumbled on a multisensory network, a connected reef that spoke through light, color, and vibration. Elena pressed the record button. This is the real gift," she breathed. "A deep-sea symphony we never knew existed." A moment of unity. For a full 5 minutes, the sub maintained position as the reef performed its silent symphony, Tortellini at the center of the stage. The scientists, enraptured, watched chromatic waves wash across the reef's surfaces. Then, just as gently as it had begun, the concert subsided. Worms retracted into tubes, jellies dimmed to near invisible. The flounder settled back into uniform camouflage, and Tortellini's colors faded to tranquil browns. Forward to the gauntlet. As the reef returned to its daytime calm, Elena keyed a new heading for Sector D3, the Predator's Gauntlet, knowing that the creatures and ruins they had just witnessed would pale next to the dangers and discoveries awaiting them. Yet fortified by the reef's silent symphony and guided by the brilliant octopus, The team felt prepared for whatever new movement lay beyond in this grand, ever-evolving composition of the deep. Viscazali, having witnessed the reef's hidden wonders and absorbed its silent symphony, the submersible dipped deeper into the reef's shadowed heart, approaching Sector D3, infamously dubbed the Predator's Gauntlet. At 07:42 a.m., the hull lights revealed a narrow canyon carved through ancient coral, its walls festooned with branching gorgonians and festooned anemones. Here, currents funneled through the gap like water forced through a nozzle, perfect hunting grounds for the reef's most formidable ambush predators. The lurking ambush. No sooner had the sub crept into the canyon than a sleek barracuda materialized from a crevice, its silvery flank flashing as it assessed the intruder. Behind it, 3 more lunged in formation, teeth glinting, bodies coiled for the kill. Through the viewport, Elena watched the tableau with tightened chest. The barracudas hunted in pack formation, using the canyon walls to herd prey into their snapping jaws. "Hold position," she whispered. Marco throttled back, letting the sub become nearly motionless in the eddy. The predators circled, uncertain, seeking an opening. Tortellini, ever their guide, slid alongside the sub's outer hull, arms spread in a placating gesture. The lead barracuda struck first, colliding with the glass in a spray of bubbles, only to recoil as Tortellini's bulbous head blocked its path. In that momentary pause, the sub reversed slowly, carried by a gentle countercurrent towards safety. The razor-clawed lurker clearing the barracudas behind them, the team steered into a side alcove where shadows hid a different threat. Zoe's floodlights swept the floor to reveal a nest of stonefish, masters of camouflage, whose venomous spines lay hidden under mottled flaps of flesh. One shift of the sub's thruster plume sent a juvenile fish twisting into view, its dorsal fin erect like a poisoned dagger. Lynn warned, "Maintain at least 2 meters clearance. 1 scratch, and we lose a hydrophone array." The sub's manipulator arms reached out, carefully retrieving environmental sensors without disturbing the fish, then backed away with surgical precision. The giant Moray's domain. Pushing on, the researchers entered a cavern where the temperature dipped and the light faded to an ultraviolet glow. Here, Tortellini paused on a basalt ledge and flicked a flipper toward a yawning den carved beneath an overhang. "Doctor." Marquez trained the camera. 6 massive moray eels, each over a meter long, twisted in the gloom, their jaws opening and closing with slow menace. Their bodies, patterned in swirling brown and yellow, looked like living ropes coiled for a trap. Marco edged the sub back slightly. "We're too large to pass," he murmured. But Tortellini had already slipped through a fissure at the base of the ledge, emerging on the eel's far side as a flash of mottled camouflage. The eels charged at her retreating form, only to collide with a wall of iridescent sponge where their teeth met no flesh. In that moment, Elena guided the sub in behind Tortellini, squeezing through the narrow gap reptile quick. The eels thrashed in futile fury, barred from their quarry as the sub and Octopus vanished further into the labyrinth. The final test. Sharks in the dark. At 8:15 a.m., past the eel den, the corridor opened onto a broad trench where the current slowed to a lazy swirl. Beneath them, the abyss stretched downward into blackness. Low, a dark shape drifted upward. A nurse shark, its broad head and stubby tail moving in slow patrolling circles. Then another appeared, and another, a small group of reef sharks using the trench as their cleanup crew. Elena's heart pounded. A miscalculated move could draw their attention. She engaged the sub's whisper-quiet propulsion, descending slowly to a safe hover above the trench floor. Tortellini surfaced beside the sub, its skin now a serene gray. The sharks approached, restrained curiosity in their unblinking eyes. One grazed the hull, feeling for vibrations. But Matilda's earlier lesson echoed. Stillness and trust could diffuse danger. The scientists cut all unnecessary lights. The sub's silhouette blended with dark water. The sharks, finding nothing but inert metal, drifted off into the black, leaving their domain to the Octopus guide. Emergence victorious. With the reef's apex predators behind them, the sub emerged from the gauntlet into a cavern of giant tube sponges illuminated by vent glow. Tortellini paused at the threshold, turning once to regard the team with luminescent chromatophores that seemed to signal, "We are safe." Elena exhaled, voice thick with relief. "We would never have made it without you." In the holdfasts of the gauntlet walls lay conserved fragments of coral, anemones waving in fractured light, and the predators now left to their domain. The team recorded every meter of the passage, mapping the reef's fiercest trials, and acknowledging the octopus's role as both guide and protector. As they charted a course back toward the sunken ruins and onward to the return passage, each researcher felt a profound respect for the deep's predators and the cephalopod intelligence that had steered them past each deadly test. With the final predator's lair behind them, the submersible began its ascent through the reef's hidden conduits toward the open water above. At 09:03 a.m., Elena Marquez keyed the controls to follow the octopus's trail back through the coral labyrinth, each corridor now familiar yet still pulsing with life. Tortellini led the way, arms curled in greeting, its skin shifting through muted grays and ambers, a silent beacon guiding the researchers home. Retracing the labyrinth's veins. As the sub threaded upward, the team paused at landmarks the octopus had revealed. The methane-tinged lagoon of shimmering water, the cathedral ruins alive with bioluminescent chorus, and the narrow squeeze of the eel. Den now empty of its fearsome residents. Each passage felt like a farewell, a last glimpse at the hidden ecosystems they had mapped and the marine denizens they had learned to respect. Marco Chen recorded sonar overlays matching their exit path against the original entry grid, ensuring future expeditions could navigate with human precision the routes Tortellini had pioneered. Final symphony of light and shadow. Upon reaching the sunken ruins' outer gateway, the octopus paused for a moment of reflection. Ambient light from above filtered through the broken arch, illuminating swirling plankton in a final silent concerto. Zoe Chen lowered the sub's lights to minimal power, allowing the reef's creatures to perform their natural ballet, brittle stars unfurling, shrimp skittering, and sponges opening their feathery polyps. In that charged tableau, Tortellini swept an arm in a slow, graceful arc, as though conducting the reef's last goodbye. Breath of the surface. At 09:47 a.m., the sub's bow broke through the thermocline into the azure shallows above the reef crest. Warm sunlight flooded the viewport and drifting seaweed danced across the current's gentle pulse. Priya Natarajan let out a soft laugh of relief as she unstrapped from her station. "We're alive," she breathed. The sub's hatch opened with a hiss of returning air, and the researchers emerged blinking onto the deck of Odyssea, salt-crusted, hearts pounding, minds alight. Reunions and revelations. On deck, the support crew applauded as Tortellini, having navigated her way up the intake channel, slithered onto a padded cradle prepared at the stern. Elena knelt beside her, gently stroking the octopus's mantle. "You brought us to wonders we'd never dreamt of," she whispered. Tortellini responded by pulsing a brief pattern of pale blues, an octopus's version of a contented sigh. Meanwhile, back at the surface lab, the team's data began to flood in. High-resolution maps of the labyrinth, chemical profiles of methane vents and bioluminescent hotspots, and thousands of new species sightings. Their escape and exploration, once considered impossible, would redefine our understanding of coral reef complexity and cephalopod intelligence. A new chapter begins. That evening, as the Odyssea steamed toward port, the researchers held an impromptu gathering under the stars. Elena raised a glass of seawater-born spirit in tribute. To Tortellini, our bravest captain, our wiliest guide, and the key to the labyrinth's heart. The octopus, cradled in a basin of cooled seawater under gentle aeration, waved a single arm in acknowledgement, and every scientist felt the echo of her journey ripple through their souls. In the months and years that followed, the tale of Tortellini's daring escape and the hidden world she revealed inspired new research vessels to venture where divers could not tread. Submersibles were redesigned to be more octopus-friendly, and marine-protected areas expanded to cover the corridors of coral she had charted. But perhaps her greatest legacy was the lesson she imparted: that the deep's true marvels are unlocked only when humans trust the intelligence of the very creatures they seek to study. And so, as Odyssea docked beneath the glowing harbor lights, Tortellini's silhouette, backlit by the moonlit waves, faded into legend, leaving behind a path through the reef's heart that would guide explorers for generations to come.